Hey there, I'm Marty Sakata, host of Resilient Alpha. You might know me from the Ivy Family Office Network, almost 3 decades of family offices and big shots collaborating on alternative investments, strategy, and good causes. That's the fuel for this podcast. Why Resilient Alpha? Simple. Why do some funds and managers crush it and others crash? We're cracking that code, redefining alpha, and bringing top brains to unpack asset classes and hot alpha ideas full throttle. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. Sean Koh is a visionary entrepreneur, technology pioneer, and the CEO of Koherent Incorporated, a dynamic family office extension that bridges cutting edge technology with global investment opportunities. With a degree from the Wharton School of Business, Sean has built an impressive career in cross border transactions across finance, technology, infrastructure, media, and entertainment. Since 2016, he has been a trailblazer in expanding technology portfolios and distributing ledger technologies, inventing the patented proof of reception protocol, which powers innovative decentralized AI solutions like Porsche as head of Coherent Capital. A multi generational family office, they own the iconic asset such as Manhattan Woods Golf Club. They played a key role in the invention of different technologies and led privatization in emerging markets. Sean brings a unique blend of legacy and innovation to his work. Coherent Incorporated, co-founded by Sean and John Koh, operates as a multifaceted investment vehicle rooted in the Koh family office, with a mission to invest, develop, and cultivate strategic relationships across diverse industries. Headquartered in New York with deep ties to South Korea, Coherent specializes in connecting Korean capital with Western technology markets while helping Western tech companies scale in Asia. The company is at the forefront of technology and AI innovation, particularly through the development of Porsche, a decentralized human intelligence agency framework that leverages the POR protocol to ensure secure delivery of information. The content here is for informational purposes only, should not be taken as legal, business, tax, or investment advice, or be used to evaluate any investment or security, and is not directed at any investors or potential investors in any featured fund or deals on this video.
I am Marty Sakata. Welcome back to another episode of Resilient Alpha. Why does Resilient Alpha exist? Because we've been around for more than 25 years. We like to know why some firms last a long time and they crush it while others crash. So somebody who actually has lasted a very long time alongside us is Sean Koh, who's a visionary entrepreneur, technology pioneer, and the CEO of Coherent Incorporated, a dynamic family office extension that bridges cutting-edge technology with global investment opportunities. With a degree from the Wharton School of Business, Sean has built an impressive career in cross-border transactions across finance, technology, infrastructure, and media and entertainment. Since 2016, he has been a trailblazer in expanding technology, protocols, and distributed ledger technologies, notably inventing the patented proof of reception protocol, which powers innovative decentralized AI solutions like Porsche. As head of Coherent, end of legacy and innovation to his work. Coherent Incorporated, co-founded by Sean and John Koh, operates as a multifaceted investment vehicle rooted in the Koh family office, with a mission to invest, develop, and cultivate strategic relationships across diverse industries. Headquartered in New York, with deep ties to South Korea, Coherent specializes in connecting Korean capital with Western technology markets while helping Western tech companies scale in Asia. The company is at the forefront of technology and AI innovation, particularly through its development of Porsche, a decentralized human intelligence agent framework that leverages the POR protocol to ensure secure, verifiable, and human-centric data interactions. Coherent's portfolio spans energy assets, real-time transactional platforms, and advanced database optimization, all driven by a commitment to technological efficiency and global impact. Recently, Coherent joined the Decentralized AI Agent Alliance, accelerating its mission to redefine trust, identity, and compute in the AI ecosystem. This is extremely relevant today since I think last week, Amazon and Walmart announced they're going to be putting out stable coins, and part of that stablecoin usage will be working with products like POR to make them move ahead. So we're going to start just get a little bit of background from Sean. and go from there. But again, Sean, welcome.
Thank you.
So you're a notable Wharton alumni. Can you talk to us about your journey from Wharton to becoming a technology and AI innovator? What sparked your interest in cross-border transactions and technology?
Definitely. Thank you, Marty. It's been a great friendship that we've developed in over 10 years or more. And in terms of my Wharton roots, I've always been a serial entrepreneur from a young age. Started in music, was trained to be a K-pop artist in Seoul, South Korea, and ended up switching gears and going into undergraduate education at the Wharton School, where I launched a record label out of my dorm room and got involved in the US music industry. But essentially, I owe a lot of my foundational value to my family, because I'm a third, or you can even consider fourth generation family office. My family was involved in modernizing South Korea after the Korean War. And then within, other generations of my family, as you mentioned, innovations like HDMI were invented and scaled, and, privatized a lot of emerging markets. But in terms of how I found my own personal career, it was, really realizing that resilient alpha is kind of found in places where people are a little bit contrarian. And that's how I found my niche in the music industry, bridging content partnerships between South Korea and the US. I also became a market maker for cryptocurrencies in 2016. Thanks to you.
You're a fabled market maker,
Yeah.
sure, yes.
Yeah, thanks to you. We created the Kimchi Premium, where we purchased crypto in the US and sold it for a premium in South Korea.
A great trade back in the day.
Yep. And then that's when I, found my current focus over the last couple of years in, inventing a new validation protocol, basically a new type of internet that's even more decentralized than blockchain and allows our own humanity to validate one another online. And that's what I've been scaling, and that's what I patented over the last couple of years.
Fantastic, great. Just as an aside, I've known you for a lot of years, but one of the things that was always intriguing is that every year the United Nations has a next gen family office get together, and I think you were the first person to introduce me to that. It's packed with the next generation in global family offices. Can you talk about how you got involved and what your role was and what its focus is?
Sure. So one of my family office assets is Manhattan Woods Golf Club, which is located right outside New York City. It has an exclusive membership of 200 world leaders, Fortune 100 CEOs, celebrities, and one of those members at the time was Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who was also from South Korea. And at that time, I think the United Nations burned through over $1 billion of Ted Turner's cash, because typical charity mindset, throw money at a problem, but from my family's legacy, we have what's called business as mission. And business is a vehicle for us to spur on economic development for people in less advantageous circumstances, to kind of teach them how to fish so that they can climb themselves out of poverty, survive, and eventually thrive. And after, befriending Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, I suggested, at the golf course, why don't we kind of adopt this alternative mindset? Why don't I get some of the leading next generation wealth holders who come from this, the fact that they come from this knowledge base is more valuable than the money they have, because their families have transformed the economies of, basically all the different countries on every major continent. So that's how that came together. And that was back in 2011, over 10 years ago. And since then, I've kind of passed the baton, to my, to the next generation, because now I'm, believe it or not,
You're the OG now.
I'm 40 years old now. I don't know if it looks like it, but long story short, it just keeps going. And, it was an honor and privilege to get that started.
Yeah, it's great, and it's amazing how philanthropic that group has been. So So let's talk about the roots of reception, because we're going to get a little bit technical in this discussion. So your work centers around a major philosophical shift from proving that we sent something to proving that it was actually received. So what inspired the invention of proof of reception, and how does that shift help us solve some of the biggest challenges in digital systems today?
Yeah, so, when I switched my kind of hat to become this inventor, I went into the history of the internet, which was based on a protocol called TCP. It's called Transmission Control Protocol. And early on, the internet was based on transmission. Did you send it? But as we all know, despite our intention or despite sending, if it's not received in the intended way, it's really noise and not really something that's valuable. And I think you tried the demo, right before this podcast. I intended to send something to you. You validated the reception as I intended it. And over 100 unique data points were able to secure that cryptographic proof. So what I realized in my career in music, if you share a song or a soundbite and it's not received, then it's never heard. If you send a message and it's never read, the sending is not as important as the receiving. And when we take time to focus on that side, here's another metaphor. I have a lot of friends who are professional athletes. If the football receiver doesn't catch the ball, there's no reception, right?
It could have been a great throw.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's so many examples of this in nature, in the natural world. It was just lacking on the internet side. And, when we explored this further and got a great team, of technologists, including, our lead engineer, Brian Rodas, we realized that this is the most efficient way to leverage our edge compute on our phone, because our phone is just sitting there and it's a computer and it's waiting for all these servers and third parties to send stuff to us. But if we move the validation to our device and we use this proof of reception approach, that results in tremendous amounts of energy savings, security, protection, because no one else knows where the transaction's happening on the edge, and creates a better sustainable future with a lot of benefits.
It's simple and brilliant, right? So let's talk about Koherent, as a capital catalyst, because I know that you've been involved in like fund startups and back in the day some crypto transactions, etc. So as head of Koherent Incorporated, you guide a family office with deep roots in innovation and strategic ownership. How does that platform allow you to see disruptive systems like POR while also continuing Koherent's legacy in asset ownership, inventions like HDMI and emerging markets?
Yeah, when I was in my 20s, I would do this investment strategy. I don't know if you guys heard of it. It's called spray and pray, right? You just kind of try to diversify and you hope something works. But us as a family, because we're managing our own capital, we have a fiduciary responsibility to ourselves. And me, coming from an immigrant family, I'm second generation American, you don't want to mess up your family's wealth, especially when you grew up with that wealth. So long story short, we kind of look at the long game, not try to build a better mousetrap or exit in how many years. We want to really create a fundamental paradigm shift and create a new tide that raises all the boats simultaneously. And once again, giving honor to my ancestors, my grandfathers were translators for General MacArthur during the Korean War. So they had opportunistic access, to the Western world, capitalism, democracy, and they were able to rebuild South Korea based on those ideals. And now look at South Korea today, one of the leading global economies. My father, he was able to be one of the original partners of Ernst & Young, believe it or not. He was at Arthur Young in the late 80s. And you may remember, I was very young back then, but in the late 80s, there was a huge disruption in the accounting industry because accounting was going from paper ledger to computers.
Spreadsheets, yep.
Yeah, so he was involved in the consolidation of, at the time he was at Arthur Young with Ernst & Whinney. So I saw kind of a little bit of that, while I was in diapers, kind of that kind of stuff happening. And, it's really kind of creating these paradigm shifts that have allowed us to, help people create new markets and then, ride the wave. And then another thing that my father did was in the 90s when the Soviet Union collapsed, he was the first money to privatize, Eastern Europe and Central Asia.
Wow. Okay.
So I think that kind of background, allows me to kind of think in terms of emerging markets. And with POR, we are the generators of data and we are the generators of transactions. Without our humanity, there would be no transaction, there would be no company, there would be no economy. So all we're doing is kind of bringing back the value and the sovereignty to the people that generate that value, which is us.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, you and I have both been around a long time, and the longer you're around, you find that everything really depends on waves. Like there's these waves that happen, and a lot of them are technology waves. But like McKinsey had a study in the 1990s that said nobody would buy cell phones because like they projected a peak of 700,000 cell phones would be sold worldwide, because they said that first everybody had to go through laying cable to do regular phone calls. They didn't expect people to just skip that whole piece of having landlines. But all over the emerging markets, people went straight to cell phones.
Correct. Yeah.
So and then we saw the same thing happen with a lot of cable wires that were laid across oceans, huge buildup. We say the same thing with crypto, and we're seeing it now with AI, where probably the guys who will make all the money on AI will be the people who are enabling it, like the picks and shovels guys. So things go in waves, and
definitely.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So talking about waves, let's talk about the Web3 NITI Foundation to bring POR to the public in a way that centers humans, not just protocols. What does Web3 NITI stand for, and how is it different from the Web3 everyone else is building? And are there coins or
no, not at all,
any blockchain involved anywhere here?
Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah. So the beauty with Web3 NITI, that's how it's spelled, but it's pronounced Web Trinity.
Yeah. Web Trinity.
Yeah, Web Trinity. So Web3 was this promise of decentralization, freedom, getting rid of the middleman. But as you know, Trinity, has this kind of symbolism of light, truth, and freedom.
Yep.
So we're technically trying to become the real version that Web3 was supposed to be and missed the mark on. Because if you look at, Bitcoin or Ethereum or a lot of major blockchains, most of the value is consolidated among a handful of individuals. And even further, because of the consensus mechanism they employ, proof of work depends on miners, another third party that gets a gas fee. Proof of stake depends on stakers. Yeah. And with Web Trinity, the reason that it's pronounced that way, we wanted to, really bring true freedom, as it relates to the digital world. In terms of the 3 NITI and why it's stylized that way, 3N stands for natural, necessary nourishment. I believe, and we believe, that the reason that we have the haves and the have-nots and the people that die of starvation or preventable causes is because all that value is validated by a third party, and they control who gets vaccines or who gets nourishment. And then the 3 I's after the N is intrinsic innovative intelligence. So if you look at POR, we're doing POR with one another. We've done countless POR.
It's wholly human.
Yeah, very human. And then in terms of the 3 T's, transformational, truthful, transparency. So we can kind of look into each other's ledgers and pre-validate the truth before we transact, which gets rid of all the risk and all the vulnerabilities. And then finally, the 3 I's is international inclusive interoperability. Instead of these kind of man-made borders online or in the physical world, now via the World Wide Web and what we call ports or proof of reception terminals that are portable in our device, we can do all this ourselves. So that's what Web Trinity stands for. We've also structured all of our intellectual property into a 501c3 because the IRS tax code enabled us to get international humanitarian rights status.
Okay.
Because essentially our mission is to free all humanity from online trafficking. So we know in the real world, physical trafficking is heinous, but now with POR, you're free to validate transactions on your own. And it actually really helps companies in the long run because they don't have to deal with GDPR, CCPA, all these compliance costs. And they don't have to deal with, third-party vendors and services, because the customer, the employee, the individual in that ecosystem is validating everything for the company.
But how does it preserve anonymity? I mean, some people want to buy, their slick sneakers online and not be known for it.
Yeah, sure. So that's where the portraits come in. Portraits are kind of our own version of a smart contract, but instead of being validated by a third-party virtual machine, it's like, any transaction that you want to share with someone else, you can embed smart transaction logic within it. And if you want to do anonymous transaction, that can just be one of the data fields.
Yep. Well, I mean, Sean, you're skipping ahead a little bit here because the next question was about portraits and the self.
Yep.
So maybe you can, give a little bit more on how does a person's portrait become a programmable expression of their verified traits? Is that information kept on a server? Do they have to download some software?
Yeah.
Can you break down how this works and how it enables more trusted, sovereign, and meaningful digital interactions? I mean, are you going to sell this in an advertising network that I just bought, or how does that work?
So portraits, because of my music background, I kind of created a POR nomenclature to everything. It's literally traits of POR. So what are the traits, what are the characteristics of the proof of reception that I want to propose to another port? And, it can boil down to kind of all the data that your phone inputs. Our phone is already sending our data to the ad networks, but we've repositioned that data to create a validation protocol that you control. And we believe that over time, ad networks' version of you is not going to be as valuable as your personal real-time version of you, which you can control. And now you can create portraits around it so that your data can only be transacted if it meets the requirements or payments or whatever you want to do with your personal data.
Oh, interesting. So you control your own data.
Correct.
Interesting. So, again, I just want to get back to, you really have an emphasis on the human part and the holistic aspect. And there's really no, breaking out of Sean Koh without talking about ESCO as human intelligence. So your artist identity as ESCO is not separate from your technical work. How does your music and your human intelligence and your Porsche agent all connect under your larger vision of verified reception and self-expression?
Sure. So my artist name, ESCO, it's also another acronym, stands for Every Situation Can Offer Hope. And right now, the big problem with large language models is basically they're trafficking us in order to feed their monster, right? Without our human intelligence, they would have nothing to train on and they have nothing to eat. But the problem is there's this huge dilemma called garbage in, garbage out. And what that means is the data that large language models are training on, they're just scraping across the World Wide Web. So in many instances, they're months or years old and they're not very relevant. So if you're training on, it's kind of like as a human, if you're eating, junk food, you're going to be out of shape and you're going to eventually maybe get a heart attack. And that's how large language models are becoming these obese, unhealthy kind of structures. Whereas the alternative that we can do with POR is instead of a large language model, we are creating a paradigm of small language models. And that small language model, which is called Porsche, another acronym, Proof of Reception Terminal Intelligence Agent, Porsche, is basically your own personal assistant that's controlled by you. Only your personal unique portraits can train it. And then you feed it what's called vitals. Vitals is videos, images, text, audio, location, settings. And just like in the real world, we have our physical vitals that track our health. Online, we have our online vitals, which I just described. And now we have a paradigm of having a digital twin that isn't controlled by a third party or a company, but actually controlled by us. And it's getting fed healthy, real-time edge data that I'm inputting in real time. So compared to what OpenAI or Meta or Google can create in terms of AI assistant, my Porsche is customized to me. And ultimately, we see a world in the future where it's all these small language models of expertise, doctors, investors, all these things with human integrity that's being licensed by one another instead of us, being subservient and in these artificial prisons of large language models.
Fascinating. I like the I'm not gonna say libertarian, but it's a very liberal worldview. So that we don't have to be confined to what some computer model says. Let's talk about privatizing through POR. Koherent has a history of privatizing strategic assets in emerging markets. How does POR enable better, more sovereign digital infrastructure in these regions? What does it mean for an economy to receive value with conditions and to trust without central gatekeepers?
So fortunately, through my affiliation with the United Nations, we recently signed a mandate with close to 50 small island developing states. And as you alluded to earlier, emerging markets, have the ability to leapfrog, the bureaucracy and obsolete technologies that exist, in the United States and other modern economies. Believe it or not, everybody, in these, I would say, less wealthy countries has a device or access to a device.
For sure, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So what we're enabling is basically a new sovereign ledger for each of these countries, updated by the ports of their citizens. And in doing so, because these islands don't have the sophisticated, expensive capital expenditures like, hardware servers, fiber optic cable, power plants, all these things. Now, by outsourcing validation via POR, these emerging economies, from a data point of view, are more ethical, more sustainable, and even, more efficient than some of the systems that run here. And our goal is to enable all these countries to enable their citizens and empower their citizens to leverage POR to supply them with, private sector, public sector utility.
No, it's really fascinating. At the same time, there's the whole issue of growth capital for those same countries and what are they exchanging, et cetera. So you've made it more peer-to-peer and less dependent on hierarchy.
And also not really dependent on currency or fiat as well. Because if you're a poor villager in the Dominican Republic, now you can go and use your port to barter your labor, like washing dishes, for a hot meal that would have otherwise been thrown away by the restaurant. And the restaurant saves money on overhead as well.
Yeah, I was trying to explain modern monetary policy to somebody who was not a business person. I said, people don't understand that when America lends people dollars, they have to be paid back in dollars. Like, so if I'm buying sugarcane or bananas somewhere in Latin America or an island somewhere, and there's too many bananas and the price goes down to whatever, those banana countries still have to pay me dollars back. They can't pay me in bananas, yep. Right? So they're unable to print dollars, right? So it causes all these economic issues that are.
And you bring a good point in terms of last mile supply chain. So even in these countries where we're integrating POR, like Colombia or Guatemala, everyone has a device. So if you're a gold mine in Guatemala, we're talking to a family that owns, a lot of the gold mines there. All the miners and all the transporters can have a port on their phone, so that in real time you can get discounted gold at the mine, and then as it becomes refined and goes through all these links in the supply chain validated by POR, that's when you get closer to parity with the market price.
Right. So people want digital. I'll give you another example. Again, I was in Latin America, and I was just driving by somewhere from like 20 years ago, and you had to have like private drivers to go anywhere, and there was lines on Friday at a bank that was like 3 blocks long. I was like, why is that? It's payday. People are cashing their checks. And then like 10 years later, I go back and there's Uber everywhere. And I was talking to an Uber driver. I said, well, why do you like Uber so much? It's because I get paid digitally right away, right? They don't have to go and wait in those lines at the bank. So there's that simplicity.
But even so, 100%. But now in terms of Uber, they take, I would say, I think half of the money from the driver.
Yep.
Yeah. Now with POR, without that online intermediary, eventually our goal is to allow drivers, to portion their ride, directly with the passenger and enjoy those benefits as well.
So when we talked about you're talking about intermediaries. Uber is a big intermediary. They're offering the service. They actually don't own the car. They're just a hookup site, and then they take the lion's share of the profitability of that, right? Because the rest goes to having to support your car, fuel, etc. So Amazon and Walmart just announced they're going to create stable coins to try to eliminate as much of the credit card business as possible that goes with their business. And something like 80% of all that money in credit card charges from Walmart and Amazon.com, it goes to the banks, right? So it's a huge industry. How does POR fit with stablecoins? Can you talk about that too?
Yeah. So, if you're, Fortune 100 company, you need to deal with a lot of compliance. And the problem for minting a stable coin on a public blockchain is you don't know who the heck is on there. And most of the time, it's a lot of bad actors. So you don't want to be intermingled with those public blockchains. And in terms of a technical point of view, if they're running on proof of work and they have a lot of servers, or proof of stake where, the stakeholders can manipulate the network, that creates additional vulnerabilities. So kind of the early discussions that we're having with POR within this use case is, what if Walmart, Amazon, all these companies have their own decentralized database, and then they have ports for each of the different customers, employees, vendors, and then they create portraits or logic in terms of how they want their stablecoin to be exchanged. Then they have a closed loop system that's totally compliant, that's kind of closed off from security vulnerabilities and hacks, and allows the individual customer or the employee or the vendor to self-validate every transaction so that their treasury of stablecoins can be validated more efficiently without gas fees even of other cryptos.
And actually, they're actually doing that right now. There's almost a proof of reception. When you go to the supermarket and you do a self-checkout, or you go to Target or whatever, there's a camera there that's taking a picture of you, which is almost like proof of reception, right? So
yeah, but the problem there is, once again, it's a third-party system that's storing that biometric on you, versus with POR where everything's happening on the edge.
It's retained on your cell phone,
exactly,
and then it looks for the proof from your cell phone.
Correct.
Got it.
Yep.
Excellent. Right. This is really fascinating. So just another. It's a little bit off the beaten trail here. So I mean, I know you're very proud of Korean culture. And let's face it, it's been one of the bigger stories of the last 5 or 10 years is how Korean culture is taking over the world, et cetera. But there seems to be an angle that as you use this technology and it kind of skips some of the blockchain issues. Are there Korean firms who back you? Like, does a Samsung come on and say, "This is great. You're going to sell more Samsung phones"? Have any of them approached you to come and work with you, or?
Yeah, I mean, so kind of we have this organization in the United States, and then we have a subsidiary in South Korea that's filed our IP in Asia and is having these active discussions, with some of the different companies. We also are talking to a lot of content creators. As you know, I'm very involved in K-pop.
Yep.
Because if you look at the music world, a lot of creators are literally starving artists because third-party streaming platforms are the validator and taking all the billions of value, from the creator.
Yes.
Such as, YouTube, Spotify, name your poison. So
I assume its starting point is 30% anywhere you go. It's 30% on the top, whether it's Netflix or Spotify or whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of like kind of driving adoption of this, we are working with a lot of celebrity influencers that want to have a direct relationship with their fans and not have all these intermediaries. In terms of kind of hardware partners, we're evaluating, which ones we should work with, but we have a lot of demand for sure. And thankfully, even the CEO of Samsung is a member at my golf course.
Wow.
So I can engage him on this as well. So
fantastic.
Yeah, we look forward to providing this as a solution, for as many people as possible.
Fantastic. Great. So talk about legacy. I mean, you're a young guy, but you've been part of a family office that's multi-generational. What
I'm
do you
not
hope?
that young anymore, Marty.
He's like a child to me, but a good one. Anyway, so what do you hope your POR legacy will be for future generations? How will people receive the work you've done long after you created it? What are you trying to establish?
Ultimately, I'm trying to just free people to do what they want to do, because at any given time, there's somebody that, may want to give you something for your data, or somebody that might want to, get some of your knowledge, or somebody that wants to transport something in your car ride from point A to point B. I believe that if we get rid of these kind of third-party validators that kind of manipulate the markets in their advantage, it's going to create, literally proof of reception in real time, to kind of infinite scalability.
Yeah, I mean, I think the intermediaries are definitely attacks on the system, right? And not just are they attack, but you want less friction.
Of course,
people should be able to interact with each other. If a guy has great music, he should be able to push it out on the web. The web is pretty much free. Why do you need to go through Spotify or whoever, right? But that question's been asked for a long time at the same time. So this is great stuff. So Sean, we're gonna take a little break,
okay,
and then we're gonna get to a lightning round after this, and we're just rock and roll on that one.
Sounds good.
Perfect. All right, so we're back for the lightning round with Sean Koh, who so far has been effortless in the way he has went through our podcast. So we're going to do, 60, 90-second questions and responses. So give me one word, and only one word, that sums up Porsche's impact on Web 3.0.
Freedom.
That's a good one. What's your favorite technology project outside of Koherent's work?
I don't have one. Yeah, because I really believe in what I'm doing, and I really put a lot of thought into it, and I have a great team and great people like you to validate it.
So you're laser focused and you've got blinders on. So that's great. If you could POR one piece of data from the future, what would it be?
It would be that everyone's dreams has its own portraits, and it's received by one another. And I want to kind of reverse engineer that future into today, because I believe that everyone's dreams has someone else that can either assist or kind of meet that dream.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's like the hardest part of life, right? Is finding partners, a network, your circle, etc. Right?
And it's the middlemen that keep us from one another.
They really do, right? They specialize in keeping people apart.
Yep.
What's the most surprising lesson you've learned from working in both music and tech?
Reception is everything. In music, if you don't, receive that audio signal, that song is mute. In technology, no matter how brilliant you are, if that technology is not received or utilized, it's meaningless.
And there's a lot of brilliant people out there. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, you've been around a long time. Smart people come to you all the time, and you're like, that guy's really smart, but he's never going to make it. So, so talk about an industry that Porsche will disrupt the most.
I think ultimately, fundamentally, we're all like creatures that are learning and educating ourselves. So I think, once you have Porsche and then you have your vitals that are feeding it, it'll really transform, how people learn, and it'll kind of make knowledge ubiquitous and, allow technology to serve us versus us serving technology.
That's unique. I mean, I think that when the internet came out back in the 1990s, everybody's like, oh, this is great. Everybody liberated. You don't have companies controlling you anymore. And we've got Google and Apple taking 30% off the top. They're taking all the VIG.
Yeah.
All right. Meanwhile, some guy has a car that he's got to put gasoline into and pay big insurance on it. Right. So what's the biggest misconception about decentralized AI?
That just because it's decentralized, it's safe. You definitely need POR to validate the reception of data and integrity and compliance and accuracy and all these things. Otherwise, having all these tokens and extra compute and energy waste, it's just waste upon waste.
And not only that, but they're taking your data.
Correct.
Yeah. So one piece of advice for entrepreneurs entering the Web3 space.
Yeah, just don't go after that FOMO or, the meme coin vibe of, pump and dump and create all this useless hysteria. Really look for something that's valuable for society. And, even if people don't get it, keep pushing forward with perseverance.
Cool. Where do you see Koherent in 2030?
2030, it's like only 5 years from now, right?
So fast, yeah.
Hopefully POR is accelerated. Our mission is to allow 8 billion humans to be free from online trafficking with their own port and create their own portraits or validation requirements of their personal data. So, Hopefully, within 5 years, if we can accelerate fast enough, we can do that for individuals, but simultaneously save a lot of money and improve security for companies because they don't need to deal with all that data headache anymore because everyone's doing it on their own.
Wow. Well, Sean, listen, fantastic.
Thank you, Marty.
Great so much for making it on Resilient Alpha. And we're going to definitely put this and stream it everywhere. So thank you so much.
And thank you for your proof of reception.
There you go. Thanks, guys.